all the games I used to play in my younger, wilder days. The game of clubs and tees had never crossed my mind. But after some discussion with my closest, dearest friends,
welcome into the first edition of the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast 2021-2022 golf season. I'm Andrew Putters, and this is my partner in crime, Joe Nicely. Joe, it feels like we had a heck of a break, buddy.
Yeah, man, a whole week. So huge downtime, and I think most of us are probably feeling that in with the NFL. So we're just going to keep on rolling right along, AP. We're getting into the swing season. We're gonna try to be with you every week during the fall. So let's get going, man. Fortinet Open, new name, still in Silverado. Let's do it.
Yeah, the Fortinet Championship, Joe, originated in 2007. It has had many different names: the Safeway Open, the Fry's Electronics Open, the Fry's.com Open over the years. But like I said, it started in 2007 at the Silverado Country Club North Course in Napa Valley, California, or Napa, California, and it is still there playing today, Joe. When I saw the name of this tournament, I wanted to say the Fortnite Championship, but it's the Fortinet Championship for those listening in. So this golf course designed, or as architect is Ben Harmon, 1955, redesigned by Robert Jones in 1966, once again by Johnny Miller in 2011. Like I said before, par 72, 71-23, Poana bent almost throughout, a little bit of Bermuda in the fairways and tees, and ryegrass, bluegrass, rough. That means it's going to be thick and cheddar out there in Napa, California. One thing to mention, though, the greenskeeper did say this is going to be the best tournament conditions this golf course has ever been in for the tour. I'm excited to see that. Probably not a lot of people. It's going to be one of the smaller Draftkings slates you're going to see, from the standpoint of we're right in the middle of start of college football season, right in the middle of start of the NFL season, Joe. I think we're going into week 2 here. Matter of fact, Baltimore and the Raiders are at halftime right now while we're recording. So, Joe, anything you want to talk about the golf course, the golf tournament? What can you remember from the Safeway Championship last year? So on and so forth.
Yeah, man, it's always kind of an interesting golf tournament because you see so many different styles can play well on this Silverado layout. We saw Stuart Sink win last year, Cam Champ the year before that. So two pretty different players. It feels as though you need to either be really, really long off the tee or really, really accurate off the tee. One or the other seems to work. We've seen bombers do well and kind of shorter hitters do well. As always, strokes gained approach, very, very important. Firing away at these greens is important. Par 5 scoring, something we're going to take a look at on this par 72. Fairly short course for a par 72, AP, but I may be most excited this week about seeing some of these new Korn Ferry Tour guys, man. Always kind of the cool part of the swing season, getting to see these young guys making their way onto the PGA Tour, see what kind of game they got. So I'm always scouting those young guys out. I'm looking forward to that, man, and just happy to have golf back. Absolutely,
Joe, like you said, happy to have golf back. But new guys, this is what's going to be interesting for this year, in my opinion, is that, you know, we had 2 years of PGA seasons kind of tied into one. They didn't have the upgrade from the nation or the Korn Ferry Tour to the PGA Tour for the 2020 season. So technically, these guys have already got like 2 years of this kind of treatment down here. Several of the guys played in many tour events, many MANY tour events throughout the last year and a half through the cancellation of many other tournaments. So it should be interesting. You're probably going to see more seasoned guys getting into the tour. We've already seen the likes of Zalatoris, Tennessee guy there. Stephen, what's his name? Just from went to UTC from Germany. I can't think of his name.
Stephen Yeager.
Yeah, Stephen Yeager, who had a great year. Siggs, who won here in Knoxville at Holston Hills in the Knoxville Open. I'm just looking forward to it, Joe. Like you said, the new guys, seasoned guys, a lot of young guys, a lot of talent coming up this year. Can't wait to see that. So Before we get in the slate, though, for the Fortinet Championship, do us a favor. Wherever it is you're listening or watching, hit that like button, subscribe to us if you're watching on YouTube. Leave us a comment on YouTube. We'd love to see more comments and some questions in there. Fire away. Twitter, Andrew Putters at Joe Nicely. Fire away. Thank you for all you all do. And also, Joe, 2021 season's kicking off. What does Rotoballer have in store for our friends, listeners, and customers going forward?
Yeah, man. The 2021-22 season is getting underway this week. And you can actually go over to Rotoballer right now, use my promo code NICE, N-I-C-E, and get the entire upcoming season's package for less than $65, I believe, when you use my promo code. So that'll take you from right now all the way to next year in the Tour Championship. You cannot beat that deal, man. Almost a year's worth of PGA Premium coverage. That includes my Core 4 article every week, Spencer Aguiar's Vegas report. We got Andy Lack that's going to be adding a new premium article. Josh Bennett does a course breakdown. So you're also getting a lineup optimizer. You're getting a PGA DFS research station. Too much to list, man. And it's just an insane value for around $65. So hope you'll go to rotoballer.com, sign up for our PGA Premium Package today.
There you go, Joe Nicely, rotoballer.com league golf editor, number one place in the world for your daily fantasy golf needs. Now, here we go. Let's get into the slate. One guy's right up there above the rest. Jon Rahm, 12-1. In my opinion, no doubt, golfer of the year for the 2020-2021 season. U.S. Open champion, reigning U.S. Open champion. Joe Nicely, 12-1. Jon Rahm. Are we sitting him or are we playing him?
I think you're playing him, man. You mentioned there's one guy above the rest this week, and not just in price, but also in talent, in my opinion. Jon Rahm, I agree with you. I think he's probably the player of the year. U.S. Open was in contention through FedEx Cup playoff. We have to feel like he's getting warmed up for the Ryder Cup this week, so I think his game's going to continue to be in top form. And when I say top form, AP, this guy over the last 24 rounds leads this field in strokes gained total, strokes gained tee to green, strokes gained ball striking, and he's first in Draftkings points scored. Not a ton of course history on this layout, a T15 back in 2016. But Rahm's game plays everywhere. He's extremely long off the tee. That's going to work well here. So I'll be very surprised if he's not contending to win this thing, man. So I think you almost have to, at least in some lineups, carve out a spot for Jon Rahm.
I don't disagree. You probably want him maybe a small percentage owned, in my opinion, mainly from the standpoint that you're going to see a mid-teens under par win this tournament, possibly a little bit lower. And if that's the case, that takes some of the advantage out of his hands, in my opinion, brings the field back into play. So Jon Rahm, 12-1, very high price, but very much worth it with this field. Moving on down, 11,000 down to 10,000, Matsuyama, Webb Simpson, Will Zalatoris, Kevin Na. Kevin Na getting some major love over the last month in many media outlets. A lot of people thinks that probably should have been selected the way he made a little run there at the end of the Tour Championship. Joe, where are you at with these five? I feel like you probably need to, at worst, have one of the top six guys in your lineup here. So where are you at with these five guys I just mentioned?
Yeah, if I'm paying up this week, I'm probably just going to go all the way up to Rahm, Andrew. Not that these guys aren't talented, not that they can't win the golf tournament, but I think there's a really huge leap between Rahm and the next 4 or 5 guys down, Hideki, Webb, Zalatoris, and Na you mentioned. You can make a case for all these guys, especially kind of as a pivot point away from Rahm and big GPPs. But if I'm going up there, I'm going to Rahm. Second favorite would probably be Zalatoris, just because of his length off the tee, and we know how hot the ball striking can get. I don't know that I love where Hideki is right now. Webb's battled through some injuries, battled through some illness, left off the Ryder Cup team, so you have to think Webb will be fired up. But I don't know that the game is there right now. I think he's kind of working his way back into form. And Kevin Na, you mentioned, has had a tremendous little run here through the FedEx Cup playoffs. Also has really good history in this event on this golf course. This is the length of golf course that he can handle. But there's no way I'm paying 10K for Kevin Na, man. Just can't do it personally.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's really high, and his history, who knows if he'll play all 4 rounds. But that all joking aside, I would like to see a statistic on Kevin Na playing in California and Hawaii versus the rest of his tournaments he's played in. So I look back and think about all the success he's had in golf. He's had a lot of success, West Coast swings in Hawaii, and then you don't hear about him the rest of the year. I don't know why I just threw that out, but that seems to be the case. And like you said, this like you said about talking about this tournament, you're going to see more players in this field. It brings a lot of people into the field just because of the way the course is laid out. Now, once we drop below 10,000, Joe, really does away with the more reliable golfers. This is 100. I mean, really, we could go just about anywhere from here, Joe. And these names we're not used to seeing at this rate, up in the 9,000s. So I don't even know who to name next, really. Not saying that Tringali is a bad player, not saying Mark Leishman's a bad player, Siwei Kim, Munoz, Barn, HV3, Champ. Really, we could go anywhere with this. And so my thought is, Joe, why would we even look here? We need to kind of start from the bottom up, in a field like this. And I'm not saying, go all the way down to 6,000s, Joe, at all. But what I'm saying is, these guys are going to be, in my opinion, just as unreliable as some of the 7,000s, 6,000s, 8,000s. So just running down through the 9s and the high 8s, Joe, does anybody stick out to your mind that you're going to be sure of? I'll give you one name right now. I'm Maverick McNeilly all the way in a field like this. Ball striking. He might have a little bit of that it factor that we like to look for in young players. But Maverick McNeilly in this kind of semi-price range to the mid 8s, from the 9,000s all the way down to the mid 8s, that's the guy I'm looking at.
Yeah, man, totally agree on all your points, Andrew. This is how we're in the swing season, right? When we go below 10K, when we see Kevin Na at 10K and drop down below him, this is when we realize this is a swing season event and the field's much weaker. As you mentioned, these players are much more volatile than normally what we're going to find in the 9K range. And I like your thought of maybe just skipping this range entirely. I do like Maverick McNeilly. Hasn't quite cracked the code at this golf course yet, but he's made 3 or 4 cuts over his career on this Silverado layout. Really came on strong, man, at the end of last year. Ran off 8 straight consecutive cuts to close out the 21 season. So I think you can definitely look at Mav, a player right below him. It's got very good course history. Chaz Reevy, a guy that we can pull the trigger on these shorter layouts. He's played well here, had a T3 here last year. Near the top of the field in fairways gained and good drives gained. If I am going to go in the 9Ks, I'll probably look at HV3 there just because the course history here is so good. He's played extremely well on this golf course, Andrew. Has 3 top 20s over his last 5 starts at Silverado and closed out the regular season and the playoffs in fine form. Had top 15 finishes in 4 of his last 6 starts in 2021. So I think you can certainly look at HV3, even though the price tag's gross. Then I'm looking at Mav and Chaz there in the 8Ks. You can maybe give a little bit of look to a guy you brought up earlier in the show, Steven Yeager, who played extremely well on the Korn Ferry Tour, but just hadn't been able to translate that success to the PGA Tour yet. And all the way down to 8K, one of my favorites, Korn Ferry Tour graduate last year that came up mid-season, had a Battlefield promotion and played extremely well once he found his way on the PGA Tour, and that's Mito Pereira there at 8K. I'll be heavily invested in him this week, I believe, Andrew.
Yeah, and Joe, when, like I said, talking about this range that we just mentioned, this is probably the weakest field we've seen since the pandemic was lifted and for the PGA Tour. And the reason I say that is because, I mean, most of those guys were playing week in, week out because they didn't want to have to go through travel protocols. So we saw very strong fields even in the swing season last year, since we didn't have a time where people were promoted from the Korn Ferry Tour up, like we already mentioned. So we're going to be looking for, I mean, we got a lot of young talent, don't get me wrong, but guys that we've always seemed to play a little bit better with weaker fields. That's why I brought up Maverick McNeilly, Brendan Todd, Cam Champ, who's a former winner here, I believe. And moving on down through Chaz Reevy, guys that we know that can play well, more consistent. That if you're looking for something more of a cash game, I would look at those guys for sure. Anyway, moving on. I love the Pereira play. Down in the 7K range, Joe. Is this a tournament that feels like Charles Howell's an automatic top 10 that we never play? I mean, 7,700, probably so. I don't know. Ryan Moore's had a lot of success here, but we're scared to death of him. Brendan Steele, we've talked about already, or you mentioned already. Adam Shank, Nick Taylor, like that name. Down through the 7,000s. It's just so hard to pin because a lot of these guys we haven't seen them compete in a month other than the Corn Ferry guys. So, you know, where you at down here in the 7,000s? I mean, look here, you got Grayson Sieg is several $100s cheaper than Steven Yeager, and they were neck and neck all through for 18 months in the Corn Ferry Tour. So, this is going to be as much of a spread out range as you're ever going to have for a DraftKings slate, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy pricing, man, and a lot of that is just you know, DraftKings and the odds makers maybe just not knowing how to react to these guys that are coming up from the Corn Ferry Tour. I think that price discrepancy you mentioned between Steven Yeager and Grayson Sieg is very, very interesting, and I won't hesitate to jump on Grayson Sieg, man. The guy is a proven player out of the University of Georgia. Hits the ball unbelievably straight, very consistent player. Has flashed some form in limited PGA Tour starts and played extremely well on the Corn Ferry Tour last year. So Grayson Siegner at 7,100, I feel like is almost a lock it in type of play. I'm also very interested in Hudson Swafford down there at 72. We saw him close out the 21 season, even into the FedEx Cup playoffs in great form. So I'm willing to look at Hudson Swafford down there. And we're kind of in lockstep, Andrew, with some of these names you mentioned. Adam Shank, Nick Taylor. These are guys that I'm looking at. Brendan Steele has tremendous course history. If you just want to take a course history narrative into this week, you can look at Brendan Steele, who always seems to find his way when he shows up at this golf course. And then you got a guy who was on an unbelievable heater to close out the summer. That's Hank Lebiota. He kind of fell apart there on us at the end. But at $7,100 in this field, the upside is definitely there for Hank Lebiota, a guy that was fighting for top 10s and top 5s consistently there for 5-6 weeks, it seemed like. And Alex Smalley is who I'll close out with in this 7K range. He's a young player that was an excellent golfer at Duke. Kind of missed his chance to get on the big tour right out of college, but he's grinded. Made some Monday qualifier starts on the PGA Tour last year and made some cuts. So he's a kid with upside, I believe, at this 7K price tag. I'll be looking at Alex Smalley this week.
Yeah, it's funny when you bring up some of these young guys, I don't even know who they are. So, great research here with Joe Nicely from Rotoballer.com, league golf editor. Bringing us stuff we don't even think about. Lebiota, I love that call, Joe. Moving down, or what about old Hickok? He had a couple of great plays there. I mean, we were playing these guys with full fields, Joe, back in the day. 6,700 for Hickok. Harry Higgs, didn't he? He has got a top 15 and a top 5 here, maybe.
Yeah, he had a runner up last year. Andrew, he finished second to Stuart Sink last year and had a T23 the year before.
Yeah,
and flashed some form there, closing out the 2021 season. So I think you can give Harry Higgs a look.
Yeah, so I'm going to move down here now into the 6K range. I'm going to throw some names out that I'll just be glancing over, putting on my list of guys that are green lighting. And that's going to be Michael Thompson, Scott Stallings. Scott Stallings 6,900 with this field. It's kind of interesting, I believe. Sam Ryder, Lipsky, that's David Lipsky, I think. Hickok, like I already mentioned. Vincent Whaley, Trey Millinex has been on the Big Boy Tour before. Tyler Duncan, 6,500. He's 6,500 in normal events, Joe. So I feel like we're going to get a little bit more value than we're seeing. Man with a lot of talent, Andrew Novick, really, really talented player, young player. Brandon Wu, excellent player. So going through these 6,000s, anybody out here I didn't mention that you want to talk about a little bit?
Yeah, a couple guys, Andrew. Nothing. Not going to go too in depth this week, but there are a couple guys I feel that are viable options down here. It's kind of gross, but I want to bring his name up. We like talking about him on here. The Duff Daddy. We can look at him at 6,800. I feel like had a T29 here last year. Closed out the year, man, in really good form. Had some solid finishes closing out the 21 season. We like him on shorter golf courses where accuracy's at a premium. So I think you can look at Jason Duffner in this field at 6,800. I'm also going to toss out a youngster coming up off the Korn Ferry Tour. The kid's a grinder. He's a fighter. Nick Hardy. He's all the way down at, I believe, 6,200. Yep, 6,200. He's out of the University of Illinois. Was an excellent collegiate player. Has kind of grinded his way up on the Korn Ferry Tour. We saw him make it through on some Monday qualifiers on the PGA Tour last year. And I like his game and I like his attitude. He's a really tough competitor, so I think you can look at Nick Hardy if you're looking for a cheap dart throw this week.
Like that call. Another name I want to throw out in the very bottom down here, Nate Lashley. You never know when that guy's going to break loose and shoot 30 under in the tournament. I mean, he's like he shows up and we don't hear about him for a while. I remember last year Pebble Beach, weaker field that we saw overall in the AT&T, and he was right there. You know,
he's like a much worse version of Kevin Na. He can show up and just get really, really hot, like once every 6 months, and then you don't hear from him again.
Yeah, I like that. Chase Seifert, great putter. So there's a couple names there at the bottom. Joe, on the way out, once again, we always got to hit this. This is going to be the first dart and heart play of the year. Joe, it's going to be an exhausting dart and heart. Who you going with?
Oh man, my dart. I'm taking my boy Grayson Siegner, Knoxville Open winner here at Holston Hills earlier this year on the Korn Ferry Tour. I think he's going to do very, very well on the PGA Tour, man. He would have been on a year ago if it hadn't been for the COVID stuff. So he kind of got another year to develop on the Korn Ferry Tour. Logged a couple wins down there. So I look for him to play extremely well. I'm also going to throw out Mito Pereira. I think he's a big-time talent at 8K in this field. I love that price tag. But my heart of the week, man, it's so unoriginal to say, but I got to say John Rahm. I mean, I feel like the guy's in such great form. His game translates to every type of layout. Hits it long, putts well, getting ready for the Ryder Cup. So I think he'll be fighting for this thing to the end, man.
Man, I can't go with you on the John Rahm play. Number one, like I said, the mid-teens to maybe even 20 under par for the winner of this tournament. It's going to be hard to see a guy kind of take some of the advantage, I feel like, out of his hands. Like I said early on the show, my heart play of the week, Maverick McNeilly, and you're going to get pretty decent odds on him. Dart play, and this is not that far down the list, but and I don't know if he can hold the putter together for this many rounds, but Sepp Straka has been around the top of the leaderboard with weaker fields, and I think this is no different here. So Sepp Straka, dart play of the week. He's not that far low down, but he's a name we really didn't throw out there. So him, Maverick McNeilly, heart play of the week, going to get decent odds on him to win. So Joe, man, welcome back. 2021-2022 season with our week off. We'll be off next week for the Ryder Cup, but then stay tuned because we're going to hit you 8 weeks in a row for the fall swing, leading all the way up to almost Christmas. So everybody from all the listeners, appreciate it. Thank you, Rotoballer.com, for everything you do for us. Remember, hit that up. PGA Premium under $69 if you use the promo code NICE. Rotoballer.com, best place in the world for your daily fantasy needs. That's Joe Nicely. I'm Andrew Putters, and you have listened to the Turn Fantasy Golf Podcast.
I've already hit 3 in the lake. It's gone.